We're now in the studio. Dave Norell's with me.
Hello again. You can't get rid of me that easily.
We can't get rid of you. Now, and we want to find a little bit more about vintage, the word vintage. So we're dealing with the Shake and Stir Vintage Music Festival. And the vintage bit means a lot, basically, to us. We stretch the idea by looking at the years from 20s to 70s, and we look at vintage clothing, vintage style, vintage music, don't we? But tonight we're joined by Mr. Brian Speight. Hello, Brian. Can you hear us?
Yeah, hi, Mandy. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you, and thank you for joining us as well tonight. We very much appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So the tech stuff's a bit fascinating, isn't it, that we're using? So
I've got no idea. I'm glad somebody else is in charge.
But we're here, and we did it, didn't we? So
There's nothing vintage about this tech, is there, Brian? Absolutely.
Nothing vintage at all. I'm more a steam engine man myself, but
Well done. But we're there. So welcome to you this evening. Hope you're well.
yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
good. And obviously you're a local Southbourne man. Obviously been involved in vintage world for a long time.
Yes. I didn't grow up in Southbourne. I grew up in northwest London, but I've lived in Bournemouth for 50 years. So, yeah, you could call me, I suppose, an established resident of the town by now. But yes, I grew up with originally in the 40s listening to Forces radio and stuff that was coming over with the Americans from World War II and post-war. And then, of course, in the 50s to the advent of rock and roll in the 50s.
Mm.
I like that idea, the 40s and the 50s. It's good. So, Brian, in your eyes then, vintage, what does it mean to you?
It's a good question. It depends, of course, who you're talking to. If you're talking to someone in their 50s, vintage to them might be some music perhaps from the 80s. But if you talk in terms of generations, which is about 25 years or so, then for someone like me, perhaps two generations, you're looking at vintages 40s and 50s. And another key element perhaps of understanding vintage is the music that you grew up with. So if you grew up with music in the 40s and 50s, it tends to stay with you. And it certainly has done in my lifetime. I don't really listen to any music, with the exceptions, of course, from anything after the 70s. I'm not really aware of too much music from 1970 onwards.
You haven't missed much,
Of
Brian,
course,
so don't worry.
No, I think you're right,
No, I don't
actually.
think I have.
It is what you grow up with, though, isn't it? It's the music of our youth, anyway, which is what we refer back to. So
It shapes your youth. And of course, in the 50s, it was the advent of the teenager, the establishment of that term. It was when young people started to get some money. Employment was good post-war. There was a rebuilding of the economy. Jobs were plentiful. Young people had money in their pockets. The cinema was producing movies. Records were being produced. There's a big American influence. And of course, people started to enjoy that kind of culture.
very much post-war, wasn't it? Everybody wanted to celebrate, and it was very exciting times. Fashions coming out, the opportunity to be your own unique person in many ways.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Why do you think there's such a resurgence in the last few years? I mean, the music genres have never gone away. There's always been a fascination with them, as you said, like the mods and me, Teddy Boys, all that sort of thing. But in the last few years, I've particularly seen, especially on the clothing side, a real resurgence in the vintage clothing, which is great because that means they then go and find out a bit about that era.
It's really come of strong in the last 20 years, I would say, with the development of weekender festivals, the Glen Miller Festival at Twinwood, other events around the country. Lots of towns celebrating World War II, Bristol, Sheffield, Newcastle, Yorkshire. Lots of towns, Medway, Chatham, Medway Revival, the 1940s. Lots of these places are really developing that, but that's come about in the last 20 years or so. But rock and roll has never really gone away. I mean, music fashions come and go almost overnight. and yet the music of the 1950s has stood the test of time and has been around. Of course, like a lot of things, if you're not interested, you don't know it's around. But in Bournemouth, there has been over the last 20 years a big vintage music scene. A number of years ago, I started creating a gig list for people that had an interest in 40s, 50s music. And I started to put together events that were going on and would distribute these amongst my friends based on them saying to me, where are you going Saturday night, Brian, for your entertainment? So I thought that I would create a gig list, distribute it to friends so we could all look at that and say, yeah, that's going on, that's on offer, so on. Slowly this built up. And even a couple, although I don't do it now, a colleague does it. I can tell you that in 2018, for example, there was 8 gigs a week you could go to within a 15-mile radius of Bournemouth, offering you 40s and 50s music, dancing, and music.
That's just amazing, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's the first time I.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, first time I was in touch with you is when you sent me over the gig list, and it's huge, isn't it? It just keeps on going.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely spot on.
We were averaging. Sorry, David.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I mean, with the era that we're living in now, we've got this social media that's supposed to be massive, but you're still right in what you're saying, Brian. People don't know about these events because one of the biggest things that we still listen to nowadays is radio, and they've made that decision to only listen to certain and push out to certain audiences. And it's a shame that, you know, the 50s and 60s doesn't get promoted like it should do, because we're celebrating those. Without those decades, a lot of the artists nowadays wouldn't be here.
Absolutely, yeah. If you listen to modern day artists, they'll talk and say the big influences on them were music of the 40s and 50s, maybe the 60s as well. That the Chuck Berrys, the Little Richards, Elvis, Rosetta Tharpe, people like this that were really pioneering the way for what we might describe as modern music. Up until the 50s, you had romantic music, ballads. You had the people like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Bing Crosby singing songs, and these were great. But it was really the explosion, the mixture of when boogie woogie, swing, rhythm and blues all came together, that you really started and developed the that we call rock and roll now, and so on, and that stayed.
That certainly has stayed, doesn't it? I mean, I was brought up on rock and roll, but I didn't really have much choice. You know, being the youngest child, and 3 older sisters and an older brother. You know, there's 15 years between us, and so my youngest singles, you know, the earliest singles I was given was, things very much 50s and 60s. You know, Elvis was very much part of it, Eddie Cochran, Chuck Berry. So that was the youth I grew up with, basically. And I'm not quite that old, but but it's certainly stayed with me ever since. And I've got the family to blame for that. But it's, I love them to pieces, and that's the joy, isn't it?
I think the other thing to remember, it's not just about the music, is it? There are a lot of people who like you said, Brian, like steam engines. We like cars. We like those. People miss the smells of petrols and oils and things like that. And there's a fascination, and people do like to live in the past.
It's a surrounding culture as well to music, the clothes, the advertising, the signs, the iconology that you'd see. It's the dressing up, the whole vintage package that comes together in, say, a weekender. Or if you go to Chatham's Salute to the 40s in September, it's there. Everyone's dressing up. Old cars are around, old motorbikes. People dressing up in double-breasted suits, perhaps, or ladies in 1940s dresses, hats, gloves, shawls, and so on. It's the whole package of not just the music itself. It's not just the dance. It's the clothes. It's the architecture. It's the all these factors that come together to influence times gone by.
No.
Do you not think?
And maybe we all like to think back. Sorry, maybe we all like to think back and remember our youth and the good times of then, rather than getting older.
I think you're right there.
Do you not think it's a case of where a lot of people, myself included, we like to look back because things were so much easier, and clothing side and anything, you are fascinated by how people could look so good on such minimal, because we didn't have the variety then, did we? There was not the variety. You couldn't walk down and see 20 men's shops or 20 ladies shops, could you?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the resources available post-war, and look at the wonderful dresses and the way ladies styled themselves. It was amazing what ladies did in terms of their clothes to make themselves look good, look attractive. And I don't mean that in any patronising way. Guys were doing it as well as best they could with their suits. But it was great. The style, the elegance, the charm that came with it. Wonderful.
Yep, and this clothing we're going to listen to a little bit more tomorrow. We've got Dawn from the Attic coming in tomorrow to have a chat with us. We've got Amanda from Bombshell Chic, and we've got a social media influencer who talks about vintage clothing and how to interact it with today's clothing. So it'd be really interesting talking to them and listening to them as well tomorrow. But you've also been helping us, Brian, with the Vintage King and Queen competition, haven't you, which we've run on social media. And you've had a look at the photographs, haven't you, for us?
Yeah, they're all excellent. I congratulate everybody that took time to dress up and submit their picture to you. I congratulate them all. Great job.
Yeah, they all did a great job. Literally, as you say, the quality and the style. It's all about the style, isn't it? And the feel of that era that's so important.
The style, yeah, evoking times gone by again.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see, but in the studio, we've actually got the photographs up on part of the studio wall. It may not be within your...
I can see the lower half of one picture behind David.
So you know what we're talking about then. So we're just going to go on a quick run through, a quick journey through some of the photographs. So I'm going to put my glasses on because I'm blind without it. So we've got a very dapper gentleman wearing a straw hat. And he is, I'm just going to find here. So where have we gone? Straw hat. We have Martin Cleal wearing the straw hat. And he looks very, very dapper. And he scored well on social media as well. And he definitely looks the part, doesn't he, in that suit?
Excellent. Excellent. I can't see from where I am now from his shoulders up, but very elegant and just the job. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if we can scan through. Can I have the next photograph, please? Aha. So we have this one. This is Zena Brockman, I think. Sepia colours and pinstripe, and an absolutely beautiful looking couple. Obviously made a lot of effort to get dressed up there. So that's a lovely photograph. Should we scan through, Brian? And have a look?
I can't see the picture. I can only see just from the hands.
Hands down. That's not very helpful then, is it? Well, I'll talk them through, and then I'll go back to the ones that you chose as the winners, okay? And we'll talk about those. So the next photograph, please.
This was a very strong contenders here. Of course, all the pictures, all the clothes are right in their setting.
Yeah, well, that's against an old coach. Yeah, this is Hannah McConnell.
Yeah. In the background there.
Yeah. Beautiful dress, lovely suit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it, do you want me to make a comment?
Please do.
A couple of observations.
Yep.
Yeah, for example, I think the gentleman there with the colour of those trousers at those times would be wearing black shoes, not brown.
Ah, okay. So he's brought a modern influence into a vintage
look. That's not a law. Yeah. Yeah.
No law, but that's Hannah McConnell. They're a lovely couple. They scored well on social media as well. Right. And now we have Edward and Elena Derren, I think. They're looking very dapper, aren't they? With waistcoat and blue tie and nice fur boa.
Cap is too modern, too fat. It would have been a thinner, slimmer tie. The material wouldn't have been such good quality as the tie that he's wearing.
Okay. All right. So he's obviously adapted to try.
Nothing wrong with the way they look. And if they walked into a room, you'd say, "Hey, you look great."
Yep, definitely. They do look great,
as
don't
they all do.
Yay. So next one, please. That's a lovely lady with a red parasol.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah, nice 50s dress, excellent 50s type shoes there, late 40s, 50s
Yep, looking lovely. That's
shoes.
Colleen
Pick
Cleo.
up in Singapore, Hong Kong.
There's quite
Yeah,
a
well,
there's quite a
good,
strong
nice with the glasses as well, and the flower in the hair.
yeah, no,
Yes.
she's got that right, hasn't she? Beautifully. There's quite a strong Japanese influence sometimes with vintage clothes and sarongs and such like, isn't there? Sometimes that comes through. I know there's quite a few people wear it at vintage events.
Yeah, tend more so Chinese chomsams.
Okay.
A little bit more so maybe Chinese chomsams.
Yeah. Next photograph, please. Here we go. We have Annie. There's Annie with a gorgeous red jacket and black hat. Any comments?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the hat is possibly a little bit too modern.
Okay.
Possibly, I'm not sure. It's difficult to see from the pictures I saw there.
Right.
So I don't want to be harsh with. Is it Anna? You say?
This is Annie.
Annie.
No, but she's made a good effort, hasn't she? Looks lovely for the
Yes,
photograph. Yeah. So
Yes.
next picture, please. Very glamorous. So this is Sharon.
Yeah, now here we have Sharon, a sort of mixture of wearing a tiara. Wasn't quite sure about that as to, as opposed to wearing, say, a band and perhaps them being presenting a flapper type image from the 20s.
Yes, very glamorous look, isn't it?
Very glamorous.
And the parasol in the background obviously just adds that little bit of flavour, doesn't it? So thank you.
Yes.
And the next one, please. Here we go. That's in Southbourne, obviously, a site we know.
Yeah. This is good. Nice. The backdrop and the props there of the truck are great. The swirl of the dress is fine. And then a nice image there. Again, you'd immediately say, see you wearing 50s clothing, 50s imagery.
No, she looks lovely, doesn't she? And so next photo, please. There we have some glamour.
Yeah, this reminded me immediately of a 1940s type pin-up imagery and or 50s type pin-up imagery.
Yes.
The sort of thing that you'd see the forces would pin up in their billet and campsites and so on the walls. Wouldn't be allowed today, but that done well there.
Yeah, that's Rebecca Manel. She looks lovely, Dave, doesn't she? Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, well done, Rebecca.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Next photo, please. Okay, we have a couple with a bump. So
yes.
So the
shoes, Bobby Socks type shoes. From there, looks like she's wearing a sort of veil on her head, but I don't think it is. I think the what's coming from the side of her head over her shoulder is on plants behind in the garden there.
Could be, or it could be a little veil.
If it is a veil,
she could have just got married by the look of it, maybe. Don't know. Yeah, it looks lovely. A lovely little outfit.
Maybe she has. Maybe that's nothing to do with the garden.
Yeah.
yeah. And he looks fine in his outfit there.
No, it's gorgeous, and that's Mr. and Mrs. McLean, I think. So on to the next ones, please.
Are all these people local?
Nope. No, there are a few local and some very, very far away. So because we're digital and gone through social media, it's gone out to a wide crowd, so which is quite exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't recognise any of the people really.
Yeah.
No, it's not that I have to necessarily recognise them or know them, but I know quite a few local people. Yeah, this is a good, from a dress point of view, too short. This was going into the 60s.
Right.
The style of the dress and the flare on it is good, but a lady in the 50s wouldn't have been wearing that. It was too short.
No, so it goes into the 60s. I suppose with Shake and Stir, what we look at is between 20s and 70s a bit, isn't it? So from that side, it might well fit nicely.
Right. Yeah. Yes, from I'm thinking more sort of vintage 40s, 50s. Say for me, 60s is vintage for some people, but I would be going back because of my age, 40s, 50s.
Got
But the
you.
props of the petrol pump and the that kind of thing is good.
It does go back to that era, doesn't it, with the props? Okay, next
Hmm.
one, please.
Hmm.
Here we go. We have
Yeah,
Yvonne Jackson on beautiful
yeah. This
bikes.
this is excellent. Both of them are dressed extremely well and perfect in terms of going out for a ride on their bikes in the countryside.
Mm,
Maybe a little picnic on the back of the lady's bike there, perhaps. But the way they're dressed, the whole lot, putting it together, the plus force of the gent, I think it's an excellent,
it's perfect, isn't it? So thank you.
absolutely first class.
And is there another picture at all? Is there another picture? No. Okay, well, that's the last picture. Thank you, Brian. And we've added up all the likes on Facebook to see which one actually comes out the winner. And strangely enough, the
Yes.
one we've got on the screen, Yvonne Jackson got the highest votes at number 56. 56 votes they got for their photograph.
That's the couple on the bike.
That's the
Couple on the
couple on the
bikes.
bike. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they were my number one.
Yep, that is amazing, isn't it? So the technology works and the system works, the judging system works, doesn't it? How fair can we be then?
Mm. Yeah, no, very good. I congratulate them all then.
Yep, so this has actually been sponsored by Bakehouse 24 in Southbourne. So a big call out for Bakehouse 24 and a big thank you for sponsoring. And they win the cash prize. So we'll be getting that over to them after the end of the festival. So it's
Where
brilliant.
are the couple from?
That's a very good question. I haven't got it on my notes right now, but I can find out for you
Okay.
and put it on Facebook. Sorry, no history done there. But it's amazing, isn't it? It's lovely that they've tried hard and they've seen Shake and Stir, the festival, go out, and they've joined in, which is the important thing, isn't it? Now, and we're going to have
Very
to
good.
say goodbye to you in a minute because we need to get on with the next band, and I've lost track of
Okay.
time. But obviously, you've been part of coming to Shake and Stir for a lot of years. It's your lovely daughter Heather that actually had the inspiration to start it up, and you've supported her through the journey, haven't you?
Yeah, it was Heather's baby. It was her inspiration. She was the mastermind behind the idea, which was basically to put on an attraction to encourage people to come to Bournemouth and utilize local business. It was about giving business to local companies, whether you hired out tents, food and drink, other equipment that you might need, and to package it all in this vintage festival. So I have to say, well done to Heather. It's her baby. She put it together.
She did. Yeah, and she brought a lot of community together, a lot of volunteers together to all make it work, and a great team. So hats off to her. She started something brilliant, and we're all working with
Yep.
her legacy going forward. So the
Yes,
team,
you are, and keeping it going, and well done to you. And for this weekend again with COVID-19 closing everything down, and I think from a vintage music festival point of view, it's nice off, but you've managed to resurrect something from the ashes of COVID and create this weekend, and I salute you and everybody that's participating.
that's brilliant. Thank you, Brian. Over to you,
Thank you,
Dave.
Brian.
No, thank you.
Absolutely fascinating to talk to you, and thank you for your input. It's been great. I hope to chat to you again
Thank you, David.
soon.
Okay, we'll say
Are
goodnight.
you local, David?
I'm not
Can I just say,
actually.
is David local?
No, I'm actually originally from St Albans, but I live in Somerset.
Okay, okay. Well,
So-
nice to say hello to you by this, David. No doubt we'll talk again sometime.
I hope so soon. Take care.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Brian. Thank you for
Thank you both
joining
very
us,
much.
and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.